It's the savvy side of 9 to 5. Listen.
Bueller.
Laugh. And learn.
Negotiation. This is what you do in business.
This is the Focus Group with Tim Bennett.
Staunch.
And John Nash.
Keep your clothes looking neat and clean.
We're all business. Except when we're not.
I love a parade. Our president's doing a parade, John.
Big military shindig.
Big military shindig. I'm excited about it, and I love a parade. There's a parade tomorrow in Philly for the Super Bowl, too. And I was conflicted because of the Eagles and being born in New England, but my team won.
Your team won, and I know that SNL did a hilarious sketch this past weekend. Tina Fey returned, and it was about the Pats versus the Eagles, and then one guy would always go, and Connecticut. And so I feel kind of like that.
It's in half.
Yeah,
You never know. So, hey, welcome to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host, John Nash. Be sure to follow along with us all week at focusgroupradio.com. John and I, some of you who follow us on social media saw that we launched a new podcast this week called the Focus Group Unbuttoned. And that's going to come out every Tuesday. It's a spontaneous kind of deep dive into politics, a little more political than John and I get here, and some pop culture and current events or whatever else crosses our mind. It's a quickie. John wanted it 20 minutes or less, so that's all it is. And depends where we are. So I jump on the mic in Philly, and John jumps on it somewhere here in New York, and it's released
somewhere here.
Who knows where you are?
Times Square.
So Tuesday mornings, that's released. And if you download our show at SoundCloud or iHeart or wherever else, it's going to the same place. So you don't have to go subscribe to anything different. But if you haven't subscribed yet, we'd like you to subscribe, like, and rate us at your platform of choice. And thanks to our folks in the booth, we've got John, Garrett, and Allie joining us as always.
And thank you, John. He does a little like the military, ship ahoy! They're setting sail.
Next week, and we had a little powwow with them earlier because we're next week. John and I have the Bare Naked Chef on. Now, if you've seen any of his YouTube videos, we don't know if he's coming in a jockstrap or
an apron.
One
or the other, maybe both.
So he's going to do cooking for us for Valentine's Day to make that special meal for the loved one in your life. So that's next week, so be sure to join us for that. We don't know what's going to happen. John and I have a loose show run. We'll see what happens.
Tim, you have something down here. You have dessert, hot cross buns.
Hot cross buns. Did I say that?
No, you didn't. But
So two things today, John, I had. First of all, the weather was really bad. You mentioned it at lunch. It's raining and snowing and ice here in the Northeast. But I will say my Volkswagen All-Track, even though they're a sponsor of the Focus Group, I would never not have an all-wheel drive car. I've always said that. I mean, the roads are wet. They aren't icy because nothing works on ice, you idiots. But so on the confidence and the control of that car, though, with the 4Motion all-wheel drive is just great. I don't know if you've been.
Can I ask you about that? You and I are on the same page. We've always had all-wheel drive vehicles, primarily because when we both worked together, agency and
at Subaru
guy, I was driving Outbacks.
If you've not driven one, you don't know what you're missing.
And then we went to a front-wheel drive car for a while, and you notice the difference. And this is the thing. It's dry, whether it's dry surface, wet, snow, whatever. But regardless of what kind of drivetrain you have, all-wheel drive, front or rear, does it make a difference on certain road surfaces once you hit 50 miles an hour, 50 or 55? Or do all cars act the same? Do all cars act the same at a certain speed?
In terms of what?
Control and handling.
Well, an all-wheel drive car will still have power going to all four wheels. Now, it's not equal. It's not 25, 25, 25, 25.
Whatever it needs it the most.
It could be 90, 80, 80, 20, whatever the system is. And some advanced systems like Audi might and you certainly pay for it, or Mercedes might have a more advanced system of which level of percentages between the front and back wheels. But generally, they're 80, 20, 90, 10 if it's just clear and dry and you're on a highway going 55, 60 miles an hour. But you still have traction to the back wheel. Okay. So unlike a front drive car, you still have traction. There is still some traction, which gives you better paralleling, better control,
So that goes to the other thing I was going to say about this kind of weather. We're in all-wheel drive vehicles, and I see people fly by in a Toyota Camry. Now, don't tell me the Camry's got all-wheel drive.
No.
And I'm thinking to myself, I'm driving cautiously, and I have a vehicle that can actually handle this. And you're flying by it.
Camry, that Camry's a modern-day Impala. That was the Impala when we were growing up. Was the
Big as a
Camry.
boat. I love the Impala.
And another thing that happened to me, I was in the rabbit hole last night, John. I didn't tell you this.
But you're telling us now, so.
So you remember I had Ancestry.com, and I was.
You were very, very upset that you're Eastern European.
So for Christmas, Brian got me 23andMe.
Oh, boy.
So I spit in the tube, sent it in. The results came in last night, the night before, and then I really kind of dug in deep. 23andMe is a little different. I see laughing over there. So
Should I try 23andMe?
well, so 23andMe is a little different in that it gives you characteristics of what your genetic DNA would have. So you'd be a good runner, or for me, I was delighted. I was an elite power athlete. So I was a good sprinter, thrower, jumper, which was
For rowing,
based upon in my running as a sprinter or whatever. And that what color hair you might have, some diseases you might be susceptible to, blah, blah, blah. But then it does your breakout of what you are. Now, Ancestry said that I was 29% British and 54% Eastern European. So I guess Slovakian, Czechoslovakian, Romanian, Hungarian, whatever. Polish.
Kosovo flat.
So this comes out and says I'm 54 Northwestern European with 28% of that being British, so Northern Ireland and Britain, Scotland. And then 12% each, about 11 something, 12% each of German and French. And then some Danish, Norwegian, Finnish, da-da-da-da-da. And then it was 36% Eastern European.
So your number, you kind of dropped on the Eastern Europeans.
So I dropped on the Eastern European scale, kind of, but it bumped up. The British part was about right, and then it added this German and French thing, which I didn't know about. Well, the upsetting part is then I start going through, and it lists all your relatives you might know and who you might be related to, and that's where you get in the rabbit hole. So I'm getting all these messages from people. Was your paternal grandmother so-and-so, punnet from Sussex, England? I have no idea.
And this is happening on their site, the 23andMe. Okay.
But I still cannot find who the Eastern European person is in the family because there's no Eastern European names as far back as I could go. So I don't know.
This has really gotten in your craw.
Here's what is upsetting me, though, is these names. And if you're watching, Mom, because my mom watches the show, there are names that come up that are supposedly second cousins that no one seems to have ever heard of. First and second cousins.
I am so.
Don't you think you would know who a first or second cousin is?
You
like
would.
Mom.
You would.
So there's all these people in Connecticut that supposedly I'm related to. And I don't recognize any of the names. I don't recognize the people. I've gone on their Facebooks. I've stalked them. I've looked to see what their families look like. Nothing. But it says they're my second cousin or my first cousin. Now, maybe it's through great-great-grandparents or something.
I think the lineage, it must be because, like my uncle, my mom's brother, did a really, really rigorous family tree. And our family goes back to Munich, Munich. And nothing fabulous.
Right.
A bunch of potato farmers, bring that wheelbarrow
What
in.
did Mrs. C say? None of us got in a boat because we're living in a chalet in Europe.
We're not exactly. But he goes back to Munich specifically, and then I have French, Irish, and British as well, but predominantly German. Now, that German thing, though, I'll do the 23andMe. I'll just buy it.
It's on sale right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you should go get it.
Like 100 and...
No, it's like 79.
Oh, done deal. All right, so how long did it take you to get the results?
Well, everybody got them for Christmas.
Oh,
so it's taken a little longer. Usually 30 days, I said. Mine was more like 45-ish.
All right, so I'm going to take care of that. I'd be curious to know what the breakdown is because the minute, if my uncle says, we're mostly German, well, who knows what the German part is? It could be a little Eastern European. It could be,
Well, I do know there's a cousin that popped up, a name I recognize, who lives in South Carolina. And that was very accurate. It said that we shared a half, and they talked about what side of the family. But some of the ones that come up that are supposedly close relatives, I just don't recognize names or anything.
And you would if you've had enough family events that you would know second and third cousins, right? It's not like,
Unless someone's hiding something. My mother told me I'd been better off going to Vegas with my money.
Instead of 23andMe.
Yeah.
Well, that's about as much as we
Or a
play.
fortune teller.
Yeah, and both those dollar amounts are what you and I play. In Vegas, I get paranoid if $50 goes out of my hand. I'm like, whoa, that's 50. It's never coming back.
Yeah. So did you watch the big game, John? Yep. Super Bowl? What'd you think?
I actually enjoyed it. It's fun when the game itself has enough drama in it.
It was a good game.
In terms of the point spread between the two teams, and at one point it was like, okay, the Pats are going to pull it out, and all that speculation about Tom Brady and his hand and the whole bit. And then there's this other whole story that happens after the game. So apparently there was a courtesy thing that's done when the Super Bowl ends. The quarterbacks usually shake hands.
Well, any game. Right, you're done. You go.
Brady exited the field, and all the confetti's going, and they had the trophy comes out. All the Eagles kissed the trophy on the way to the podium, and Bob said that's the filthiest trophy. You know, that's the flu season. Why? I'm like, honey, the trophy only comes out every night. You got to kiss it on the way down. But then apparently, Tom Brady's wife Giselle purposely went and thanked all the Eagles players that she met in the stadium. So they were all like blown away, like, because she's like a supermodel. And then behind the scenes in the stadium, the locker room area, Tom Brady apparently ran into some of the Eagles and were very, very complimentary. You guys had a great season. You deserve this. And one guy says to him, one team player that he met said, you know, I began football because of what you did on the field. Right. So it's weird to have, you know, so it was a fun game. And the ads, you and I talked about this on Unbuttoned. So if you're getting our podcast, that's part of our feed this week, the new Unbuttoned. And we spent about 10 or 12
which
minutes.
Ones we liked, yeah.
And we landed on the same side. I went in blind to the Super Bowl. In past years, me and Tim have been privy to a lot of the ads that were going to be aired through the advertising stuff or Stewart's column. Right. But it was fun to actually not have any idea what I was going to watch and be surprised.
Although you said something very interesting at lunch today. About you had read something about...
one of our listeners pinged me on Facebook Messenger, and he had been watching Good Morning America, and the discussion they had on GMA was, tell me 4 ads you remember from last year's Super Bowl. And to a T, no one could. Maybe they remember 1 or 2. Maybe it was pistachios. They could name the brands because there are brands that have been consistently.
Budweiser,
but they couldn't remember the ad, and that says something important to me. So the ad I remember, a couple ads I remember the most: the Clydesdales approaching New York after 9/11.
Yeah.
Incredibly emotional ad, and VW. The Force ad with a little kid dressed as Darth Vader.
That's all you.
It's an Alchemy, is perfectly done ad. Remember last year or the year before they had Baby Monkey? It was one of those beer things. That strange creature pops out, and it was Baby Monkey. It was one of those like.
I don't remember that one either.
This year I thought Tide was the most memorable. We talked about it on Unbuttoned. Tide
took it over. They came out of the blue, I think, and won the Super Bowl.
I didn't know laundry detergent was such a big hot category.
Yeah. I always remember the one that was a take on the Seinfeld, which I know it's just crude boy humor, the fart joke.
Yeah.
When they're in the sleigh with the girl and the horse farts. I still laugh to this day.
Doesn't it catch on fire or something?
Yeah, I still laugh
and
to
then
this day.
Then
I think it was Budweiser.
Yeah, and the camera cuts to them, and they all have that look, you know, that blown out look, which I love.
Did you guys watch the Super Bowl? And
Yep.
Did your team win or what?
I didn't really have a team, but I was glad that the Eagles won because the Pats always win.
Yeah,
well, the Pats are a dynasty, similar to, I guess, when the Steelers used to be, or Dallas used to be, or Green Bay, right?
Even more.
Yeah, they're a dynasty. Huh. All right. Well, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Yeah, now this is one of my most favorite caught my eyes for a while because... And to my younger sister, Laura, you're going to love this one. Headline reads, Monopoly is releasing a special edition of its iconic game that's made specifically for cheaters.
Who cheated?
I was a master cheater at Monopoly. I was the banker.
John.
And I usually always had, don't look so surprised. You cheated at Monopoly.
I'd have been so mad at you. No, I didn't cheat.
You did too. Don't tell me you didn't cheat.
Nope.
I was careful. I loaned the bank. I was the banker, and the banker made loans to me. I didn't necessarily repay them, and then to keep the game going, I used to do this thing where if my sister was, all right. So you know my
two. Is it just you and your sister playing?
Okay, so you know my 2 sisters, right? So Lisa was the smart one. She'd eventually, and Laura's smart too, but Laura liked playing the game. But Lisa would be like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore because she caught my little game, and she's like, I'm not playing. Laura would stay in because we just had fun, and I would do this game called Catch the Cash, where I would take my Monopoly money, throw it up in the air, whatever she caught, she could keep, and that would get us going around the board again. Catch the cash. What? Who comes up with this,
That's
right?
the thing with Monopoly, right? You can make your own rules. Everybody
yeah.
always had their own kind of
So
stuff.
Hasbro, the makers of Monopoly, conducted a survey, and they realized in the data they got back that nearly half of the people that play Monopoly attempt to cheat during the board game. And so they decided to put a game together that was going to satisfy that by making the object of the game winning while cheating. So the object of the game is still to be the player with the most money at the game's end, but it may be a little tougher to accomplish. The Cheaters Edition will ask players to get away with cheating as many times as they can during gameplay. That means players can skip spaces, try to avoid paying rent, and slip a few extra bills from the bank when no one's looking. This is exactly what I did as a kid, so they read my mind. So how does this work? Well, in addition to community chest cards, remember the community chest?
Yeah.
The Cheaters Edition will also have a stack of 15 cheat cards. During any point in the game, 5 cheat cards will be placed in the middle of the board, which players can try to fulfill at any point in the game. The cards will ask players to complete a number of tasks during gameplay if they wish to do so. So some of the cheats are stealing money from the bank. Here's one of my favorites. Placing a hotel on one of your properties. Just putting the little thing there, right? Removing a hotel from someone else's property, taking an extra 100 as you go around the bend. Moving another player's token instead of your own, giving someone less money than you owe them, and collecting rent for someone else's property. Now this seems kind of some of these seem, but if you get caught cheating, you're penalized. You have to put money back in, so.
I was slavish to the rules on Monopoly.
Really?
I guess I missed out. I watched everything like a hawk. There was no putting up an extra motel or... I knew every property, what was going on, what the rent was going to be.
I didn't like just put up extra hotels or houses. I would first steal the money from the bank and then legitimately pay for the hotels and houses.
Didn't anybody pay attention to you with your hand in the till?
My younger sister Laura used to get so pissed off because when she cheated, no game. You can't play this game.
You would stop the game?
Because I was the banker. I kept to stop the game. Now, do you remember the first properties in Monopoly as you come?
They were the light blue ones.
Yeah, so apparently if you're the first to land, and they've changed the rules on this edition, if you're the first to land on Pennsylvania Avenue, was Pennsylvania, I forget how far around the...
It was green, I think.
That was one of the green ones.
Yeah.
You don't need to pay for it. It's free for the taking. So they did this thing where some of the properties are free for the taking if you ask on them.
Oh, really?
If you land on them, yeah. The game's going to be available in the fall for $19.99 for ages 8 and up. I say all ages. All ages learn to cheat, have more fun. So the cheaters...
I always bought the crappy properties and loaded them up with hotels because...
You rolled... If you came around the bend, if you did not, as a slumlord.
People wanted Boardwalk and all that stuff. I got the crap. I'd buy all the crap up.
Park Place and
Boardwalk. Everybody wanted those things because it was expensive. But I would buy the crap and be a slumlord. I'd throw because it was cheaper to put up hotels and stuff.
I'd be a slumlord.
Yeah.
You know what they should have done in addition to Monopoly? They should have done like coin-op laundromats, car washes. Instead of the railroads, you should be able to buy things that you could take money and the IRS doesn't know about. So that's what caught my eye. The Cheaters edition of Monopoly. I thought you'd enjoy that.
How much it costs?
$19.99. And Monopoly should make it so that if you do something funny, you get $1 off for you.
ATM.
Yeah, exactly.
ATMs, there's no money anymore, John. Maybe they won't do cash. Then how would you cheat if you don't do cash?
You got to have Monopoly cash. You got to, yeah.
Mine was a bit different. Mine said, here's what to watch for as American Airlines employees take the uniform battle to court. So what has happened was...
Why is there a uniform battle?
So American Airlines had changed all their uniforms last year, 2 years ago, and hundreds of thousands, actually 4,000 employees have complained that the uniforms are making them sick.
Well, why? They made of material.
So they said, so obviously you want the uniform to last, and you want it to always look good and stand up and whatever. So there's some sort of chemical they put in there. The company's name is called Twin Hill, and there's 2 lawsuits. One is filed in California against the manufacturer, which is Twin Hill. The other lawsuit is against American Airlines, and the flight attendants say that the uniforms, since they've had to wear them, have caused rashes, headaches, and trouble breathing. And so they blame it on the uniform. So they claim that there was negligence of product liability and it was an intentional infliction on their emotional distress. They don't want to wear the uniforms anymore. So they said people did not report any of these illnesses until they started wearing these new uniforms. As I said, 4,000 people have complained since 2016 when these were introduced. Twin Hill says we've made thousands and thousands of uniforms for other companies, same sort of material. Nobody's ever gotten sick. Must be your problem. The issue now, though, as they've gotten all these experts in, they can't figure out what one chemical is causing the sickness. Because they did some other studies in 2013, all the Alaska Airlines flight attendants had done the same sort of lawsuit, and they lost because they couldn't prove that the uniforms were making them sick. But when they got rid of the uniforms, everybody was fine. So what happened is American now, as of 2019 and 2020, Land's End is coming in and supplying all new uniforms, which I'm not so sure that's going to be much better. Be sure to order a size bigger. The stuff shrinks at Land's End.
I was just going to say it's going to be either like, yeah, I don't know.
Like Land's End stuff. But so this is supposed to go to court soon. And but what American is hoping that they'll have all of the uniforms replaced before it actually goes to trial.
What a weird thing I mean, so it's an artificial fabric of some form. Like, if it was just 100% cotton or whatever, it wouldn't be.
Yeah, they said it's some chemical that they put in there, and to make it more durable and make the clothes look like they're always new or whatever. We used to run into this at auto shows. You know, if you bought stuff at Banana Republic, you could wear it for about 3 shows and then you throw it away.
It doesn't look the same
because
it
your
loses
clothes
that
are going to wear.
crispness.
Right, and you take it to dry cleaner and it gets cleaned all the time. It's not going to hold up. So that was the one that I saw. And those other pictures that were up there, those were other
classic uniforms.
Now that one in the middle, if you're watching on the video feed, those are the actual. Can you guess what airline that is? Those are the actual uniforms.
Aeroflot?
No, that's what I would have thought.
Oh, wait. Okay, so if it's not Aeroflot.
This was the 70s outfits for this particular airline. It's a U.S. airline.
U.S. carrier?
Yep. Look at the long coat. You look
With the Russian hat?
Yeah.
Pan Am?
Alaska.
Alaska Air. Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Left is the American Air in the 60, and then Braniff Airlines, which I love, are the broads on the steps. I mean, they were trying to be mod like the
those
Laughing.
poor women.
Can you imagine wearing those clown
Could you
outfits?
imagine they're in their hotel, they're getting ready to go to JFK, they pack their bag. All right, honey, we got to put on those dumb hats.
Talk about making you sick.
Oh my God! Not even from the fabric, just from the looking in the mirror. Hey, we got. I think Billy's on the line.
Oh, okay.
Hey, Billy, welcome to the show.
Is that Sarah Palin?
In the middle, it looks like it,
with
doesn't
that
it?
trench coat. That's
Right, I love
Sarah.
the outfit, though.
I
Yeah.
asked.
Maybe that missing ingredient they have in their fabric is formaldehyde.
Well, it helps preserve, right? It's a preservative. So I had mentioned to Billy earlier, I had pulled something that caught my eye, and it was the notion of, the 747 is no longer going to be.
Right?
It's well, Billy, is it truly out of production?
No, it is not. UPS just made a deal for $5.5 billion for 14 -8 cargo planes. And the big cargo company in Germany also has a contract so all the -8s are going to be cargo 747s.
Right, but they're for commercials, so the passengers aren't going to fly those
Yeah,
anymore.
because the 777 is much more efficient for getting people around, but the heavy hauler is not out of production.
Yeah, I had come across an article about a graveyard. I forget what state it's
Arizona,
in.
right?
Arizona, and
Arizona,
they park the old planes there, and some they cannibalize, and others they just sit there for a while, and then sometimes they repurpose these aircraft for other parts of the world. So Billy, I just was curious if you knew. So you answered one big question. So they're still going to be manufacturing the 747-8 for cargo use, right?
Yeah, and it's very, very huge. But it's an awesome machine. The people are getting into are enjoying the new cockpit, all the digital flight instruments, flat screens, and it's just super efficient with the GE engines.
Is that one of the planes that the nose opens up to slide in? Oh my God, that's a very special craft.
Does that have the upstairs?
Yeah, well, that's the one they used for the electric flyer for the one that flew around the world on electricity alone. They stuffed it in there and took it to, Dubai to fly around the world.
So what is the plane the president's going to get? Because the president currently is in a 747. Aren't they getting a new one, or are they keeping that same style?
He initially wanted to have his own, but that's a security nightmare, so they're going to keep the 747 for now.
Right.
Of course, I think he should be riding in a Model T.
It's funny, I used to live in Minneapolis, and every morning or once a month I had to be in Chicago, and I flew Northwest Airlines to Chicago from Minneapolis, and they would always fly in the morning, the first flight, this huge 747
Just to get the equipment.
to get to Chicago, so then they'd get to Narita. But I used to love it because there was like 60 flight attendants and 10 of us on this plane. And by the time you got up in the air, you were landing. I mean, it was great. But I thought, what a waste to take that plane and just
Well, they had to
20
move.
minutes.
Well, they moved the equipment.
Yeah.
So, Billy,
I guess.
Yeah.
Billy, when an aircraft like the 747 is retired, the passenger version, obviously, and they move them all to this field somewhere. How much of the air, like, how many years of parts do they have to, like, are they going to cannibalize? Because I assume these things are still flying in other parts of the world, right?
Yeah, they'll hang on to them for a long time, and what are redundant systems or whatever, they would be trashed, the seats will be trashed. But the special parts for the airframe that don't have too many time cycles on them, they'll keep. So that's what kills the airlines is time cycles on the equipment.
What's a time cycle?
How many times it has cycled through that process, like pressurization. There's only so many times the pressure vessel can handle being pressurized that many times before it starts getting cracks.
Wow. Okay. So
length of service.
yeah, when they park these craft for good, wiring is useless. The chairs.
It'll be recycled.
Recycle.
They'll strip what's really good, and it'll sit there for years. And finally, the trouble is, most aircraft aluminum is not that recyclable. It's got a particular mix in the metal that it makes it, it's not good for a Coca-Cola can.
Well, if it's not good for a Coca-Cola can, it's not good for much.
I thought they also kept some, maybe this was the military, didn't they keep some there as well just in case of war for moving things?
Maybe for target practice.
Yeah, I mean, I knew there was something I had read about there was also at this field another place where things could be uncommissioned.
Yeah, decommissioned.
Oh, decommissioned, then would it be uncommissioned? You'd recommission it. You put it back in service.
John, before I go,
Yeah.
before you go, I have a special edition Monopoly that you should be making money at.
Is this the Star Wars one?
Well, no, I know you love that. You probably got too happy with that solo commercial the other night. No, the Trump edition of Monopoly.
Oh my God, there's a Trump edition of the game?
Sure, why not? You build a wall,
Yeah, we can
and
make.
then you get a military parade. Did you see his
could have a
hair
Cheeto.
the other day, and he looked like, what's his name there from Star Wars when he didn't have a helmet on?
Darth Vader.
Yes.
Yeah, it was in that rally he went to. The wind's blowing around, and suddenly that comb over gets shifted. You're like, whoa, baby,
Oh, yeah.
it's a comb over.
That's science.
Wow, that's a good idea.
Hey, Billy, thank you so much for calling and for sharing your knowledge about some of this. The aircraft thing utterly fascinated me because, these planes, they don't just cost thousands. Each of them are millions of dollars. There's whole leasing things that go into it.
Yeah, the 14 747s for UPS alone are $5.5 billion.
$5.5 billion. It's amazing. It really is.
I'll have to ask my friend Kenny. He's a flight attendant on American Airlines and see how his attire is holding
Yes,
up.
his uniform is.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Billy. Have a great one.
Cheers.
Thanks. I knew Don was going to call about that Tesla. Hello, Don. I'm surprised you didn't beat Billy.
Yeah, like I said, I was surprised that, especially John, that wasn't caught my eye that we now have a Tesla sports car on an elliptical orbit between the Earth and Mars.
Yeah, Don, what did catch my eye was Bob says to me, my husband says the other night, he's watching the news. I was in awe of the Dragon X lifting off, especially knowing that it's the most powerful rocket launched since the Saturn V. And the Saturn V was one hell of a piece of engineering. Bob looks at me, he said, what a horrible thing, we're littering space. I'm like, space is pretty big. The Tesla's not going to get in anybody's way. And then they missed their orbit somehow. I think the car is going out towards the asteroid belt. Is
It'll be
that
an autopilot, like we are down here on Earth.
Don, is that true? Did they somehow miss the orbital insertion of the car?
Well, the orbital insertion is not exactly as they had wanted, but it is on a trajectory actually to begin an elliptical orbit going from the sun to Mars. And it will be a slow decay orbit that will take 137 million years before it falls into the sun.
Yeah, that's what I was reading. There was some of the newscasters were laughing about
John,
that.
thank you. John put up the diagram here of the orbiting of the
So
car.
it'll spin and spin and spin and spin.
I think it's a
What if
brilliant
the
diagram.
music will keep playing?
I don't know.
Have you seen the picture that was taken of the car with the Earth in the background?
Yeah, John had that up on our screen a moment ago. I think it's hysterical. I think it's great. And I think this is a big, big moment for the commercial space industry to be taking over from the government.
yeah, that's the thing people are not really capturing is the fact that this is the very first public demonstration of commercial application of space travel.
Yeah, and it's an important moment because normally only governments could fund space programs.
Not getting on that ship.
Tim, I'm not getting on that ship.
Hey. Bad enough time flying in a Telluride in that little airplane.
Oh, that was bad, yeah.
It's safer than any airplane you've ever been on.
Probably, right. But I'm not getting on.
The closest I've ever come to any of this is I was given a seat on the 0G plane about
10 years ago.
10 or 12 years ago, and it flew out of LaGuardia, and we flew upstate to this area, and then the plane does these parabolic jumps, and they simulate lunar gravity, Martian gravity, and then 0G. I had a ball, but by the 5th 0G jump, I had not taken any motion sickness medication, and that's when I'm like, and they warn you to not look out the window when the plane's doing this.
I don't know how the pilots do that.
Because this woman and I were like, she goes, let's look out the window, and we're laying there, and we look out the window, and I was like, you. Hey, Don, thanks for the call.
Your equilibrium goes sideways.
Just exactly. Thank you.
Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
I don't know how the pilots do that. So our business birthday today, back
Everyone
on
does
Earth.
celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
Born today, February 7th in 1804. He died in 1886 at 82, but born today, February 7th, John Deere.
The John Deere.
Nothing runs like a deer, John.
Nothing runs like a deer.
An American blacksmith and
he was a
manufacturer.
blacksmith?
Yes, he was a blacksmith first and a manufacturer. He founded the Deere Company, or Deere and Company, one of the largest and leading agricultural and construction equipment manufacturers in the world. He was born in Rutland, Vermont, and he moved to Illinois. And in 1837, he worked for his dad. His dad had a business where he was a blacksmith and also did work as a what's the word I'm looking for? A tailor shop.
There's a tailor.
It was a tailor. His dad was a tailor, and he was a blacksmith, and he would work for his dad's tailor shop. And when he moved to Illinois, he found that the plows that they were using didn't work well with the sticky clay and the way that the clay and the dirt was
too tough
in Illinois. So the plows kept wearing down. And he remembered the steel polished prongs that he would use when he would polish for his dad's tailoring business and thought he could make a plow out of that. So he did. He ended up making plows out of this polished cast steel. And it worked great, and all of a sudden he had this plow business that he never thought he would have.
For agriculture.
By 1841, he was manufacturing 75 to 100 plows a year. By 1855, the factory was doing 10,000 plows a year.
Wow.
So it was known as the plow that broke the plains, because before then, nothing was strong enough to get through the tight dirt and heavy dirt. Reminded me of the Devil's Rope. Wasn't the rope that tamed the West? Or
that was barbed wire. Barbed wire. Not how the West was won, how the West was tamed.
Right, the Devil's Rope. So he once said that he would never put his name on a product that did not have it in was not the best of him. Essentially, he wouldn't put his name on something if it wasn't the best. And he ended up giving the business to his son in 1868. And we know what happened. I mean, the John Deere is still around today. They're using the same logo that they did since for 155 years. They're based in Moline, Illinois, 104 on the Forbes list. They've got annual revenue of $29.5 billion.
Yeah.
He died at his home in 1886 in Red Cliff, and they made a little museum of it there in Illinois. He ended up becoming the president of the National Bank after he gave the business to his son to run, and did some more public affairs and political civic duties around town. But talk about seeing a need and then making a business out of it.
Very clever. And John Deere and Caterpillar and a couple other big equipment manufacturers are often scrutinized very carefully by analysts to see where the economy is going. Because if you're buying John Deere or Caterpillar, you're either building, you're maintaining or whatever it is. But one of those companies that's an iconic industrial brand.
Yeah, and I know they had a resurgence in I would say, I don't know if it was the late 90s or early 2000s.
I was going to say, yeah.
Remember they were doing things, they used to do things on college campuses where they would bring the tractors for kids to drive and stuff, I guess to get them hooked on. But that color scheme, everything's been the same.
Same thing, green and yellow.
Which is pretty cool, which goes to show that you could still make money in an economy if you provide a good product at at a good price.
Yeah.
Kind of like Yellow Bean, right?
Kind of like, yeah.
So, hey, speaking of good prices, you know, one of our partners here in the focus group is Deep Discount. And right now they've got the award-winning movie sale going on. But for the month of February, and we posted this on Facebook, and we'll post
keep
it again.
posting it, but it's only for our listeners.
Only for our listeners, unless you want to share it. For the month,
share it. Do the little
share it, because that's what social media does, is share. So for the month of February, Deep Discount is giving our listeners a one-time use 15% off code. So when you check out, you just do the letters FG15, and it will take off the 15% off your total, which is already a great price. And we're not blowing smoke there. There's some really great prices on all their items there. The only thing that's not included, doesn't bother me, is games.
And game consoles and accessories.
Yeah, but I don't care about that. So what are what movies?
So this is one of my favorite categories. And if you go to Deep Discount, get there by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the shark logo. Arr! I have to do the pirate because I'm hardwired to do the pirate. I do not know why, but I do it. And then I say the same thing all the time. It's kind of the charm. Right?
Predictable.
And you know, we like predictability. We like constancy in our lives.
John Deere.
Like John Deere. Arr! All right, so favorite category for me, because award-winning movies can be Academy Award winners, Golden Globe winners, Screen Actor Guild winners. But I went through the page after page at Deep Discount and I urge you to do that. Just start going, and you're going to pick out titles, which is exactly what I did for us, that I have not seen but I want to see. And the first one is a movie called The Danish Girl. And this was from a year or two ago, and it stars Eddie Redmayne, who plays a transgender woman, and his wife is played by Lily. No, I got that wrong here.
Does she work at a bakery?
Oh, sorry, Gerda Wegner. Does she work at the Danish Girl? Oh my God! But she makes
Danish Girl. She makes donuts.
She makes hot cross buns.
There we go.
Thank you, guys. Anyway, I want to see the movie. Eddie Redmayne is.
I saw it.
You did see it. Wait a minute. My mom loved it. What did you think?
Well, if your mom loved it, what did I do?
You probably didn't like it because
your mom liked that one about that hotel, which I could.
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Oh my God,
I was going to pick
movies,
that.
Right there.
Oh, are you kidding?
Right there with The English Patient.
Oh my God, the Grand Budapest Hotel is great. It's wonderful cinema.
Well, I'll be curious to see what you think of The Danish Girl.
All right. Well, I'm going to see and the other one I picked, which is, and I do plan on seeing this.
I know you will. I know you will.
You know, I'm going to put that on my order. Birdman, starring Michael Keaton. Now, this came out a year or two ago as well. A lot of buzz when it came out, independent film. And the subtitle of the movie is The Unexpected Virtue of Ignorance. And it's kind of a black comedy where Michael Keaton plays a former superhero actor who's mounting a Broadway comeback, and a lot of things come to the fore psychologically while he's doing that. Did you see this as well?
Like the producers, no. I didn't see this.
By the way, that was on the original producers was on TV recently. It's a classic Mel Brooks film.
I did not see it.
So I would say I'm giving these two a shot because I haven't seen them yet.
I want to hear what you think about it, so
I'll
you let
give
us
you my
know.
review.
The new release this week is Suburbicon, which
we both
said we thought this would be cool. So George Clooney co-wrote, but he said he actually dusted off an old Coen Brothers script. And I love the Coen Brothers. They did Fargo.
Yep.
And I thought it was, the premise of it, it says, it's a pitch dark satire set in a seemingly idyllic suburban neighborhood in the late 50s. The community's white residents are so caught up with the needless harassment of an African-American family that just moved in that they haven't caught on to the fact that the mild-mannered Gardner Lodge, who's Matt Damon, recently murdered his wife and his sister. So they're
all looking one way.
Look at here.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's one of those dark comedies that I just simply love.
Great cast, though.
So it's been released on Blu-ray. Yeah,
Julianne Moore is in it, and I love Julianne Moore. And Oscar Isaac is in it. Now, many people know him as Poe Dameron from the new Star Wars movies. I first was introduced to him in a movie called Ex Machina, which I really liked. So I agree with you. I want to see Suburbicon as well.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
So let's recap. It's award-winning movies at Deep Discount. We have a code for you guys to use for our listeners, FG15. It's a 15% one-time use off your whole order. Everything except games, game consoles, and accessories. And we recommend, well,
John recommends.
We're split on this. Danish Girl, because I haven't seen it yet. Birdman, which I haven't seen either. And the new release is Suburbicon, which we both want to see. And maybe we'll give it both thumbs up. So visit focusgroupradio.com. Go to our site, click on the shark logo, and start shopping. And Garrett,
Thanks, Deep Discount.
thank you. We're going to take a quick break. That was a very heartfelt thank you, Deep Discount. Taking a quick break, and when we return, we have a shop talk called The Mistakes You Make in a Meeting's First Milliseconds. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Try, really try.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
I never try anything. I just do it.
One of John's favorite movies, Faster Pussycat, Kill.
That was the screening movie. That's what got me through Gate 1 to date Bob. I had to like that movie. I had to see it twice. The second time I was stoned.
I put it on for people and I get mixed reviews, but I think it's a fun movie to have. It's one of those background movies.
A movie that also gets a lot of mixed reviews that you literally felt. We watched you fall down the rabbit hole. You were visiting our house upstate. I put Grey Gardens in the DVD. We thought, we're just going to show you 2 minutes of this thing. You were glued to that set. And we're like, wow, Tim.
I'm a half a chromosome away from eating.
S-T-A-U-N-C-H, staunch.
So welcome back to the Focus Group. It's just John and I today, which I love those kind of shows, as you know. I hate a guest. So
I hate a guest.
I shouldn't say that. I know we have guests at times, but sometimes
now you're digging yourself into a pit.
Sometimes we just don't have to go as quick.
I agree. We can have much
more time to breathe.
Much more fun.
So we've got 2 shop talks today, and the first one, before we go to the next break, is titled "The Mistakes You Make in a Meeting's First Milliseconds."
Yeah.
And if you've watched our show over the years, John and I have talked about this a number of times. When I used to do a lot of recruiting as a headhunter, and everybody does this, and you do this when you meet anybody, anywhere, anything. If you went on a date or something, you're going to do this. We unknowingly will size up somebody within milliseconds of saying, I'm either going to want to like this person, or there's something I don't like about them, or their smile reminds me of somebody friendly and warm, so I'm going to want to trust them.
Exactly
might be a little older, and so you're going to say, well, I want to like them. And this goes through kind of the stages that happen and how to make yourself more presentable all the time when you're either doing an interview or you're meeting somebody.
I was really fascinated, and what Tim just said, I'm going to echo what the author actually put it into words. This part was a little unknown to me, but it says a growing body of research shows the snap judgments people make about others' trustworthiness are wrong more often than most people think. And this is the part that I was fascinated by. These first impressions are formed in milliseconds based on instinctive responses in the brain's emotion processing center, the amygdala, A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-A. I never even knew how to pronounce that when I was in high school or college. But it's an emotional response that we have that we don't even know, as you just said, that we're having. And I don't even know how you get around that, frankly. Well, there are some ways to get around it. But apparently, it's all the things we've talked about on our show before. When you cross your arms, you're inaccessible. If you walk in and your hands are in your pockets, that's telegraphing a signal.
You have a grumpy face.
If you have yeah, exactly.
Which I'm guilty of. I'm very reserved, and I come across as being kind of, you're all happy with lights on with the smile. I go in kind of like, oh boy, here we are. And
it plays, in our world, it plays good cop, bad cop, sometimes very good. But also, I thought you kind of developed your game face in corporate America.
I did from meetings in just terms of not just trying to be level or whatever. But I remember years ago, I was listening to an interview with Tim Russert, and I've tried to employ this since I've now working with you, or we work for ourselves in our own business. Is he would say that he would dread having to go to events sometimes, or would dread having to go speak somewhere, or going to a corporate thing. And he said, I realized that I had to get into the frame of mind that I made the decision and I'm going, so I need to act as if it's the only place I want to be in the world. Yep. So I do that myself. If I've said, oh yeah, something 2 months from now, somebody invites me to something to go speak or go be on a panel, and you're like, oh yeah, that sounds like fun. The day before, you're like, oh God, why did I decide to do this? Yeah. But you say to yourself, you get poised, you put on your smile, and then you go there and act like you're just having a wonderful time.
So I'll pick up on that and say what I've said to people frequently about this. You're putting on a show.
Yeah.
Whether you know it or not, you are performing. And the minute you think you're performing, you're going to do much better.
Well, that was, did you read that line here? I wrote it in the sidebar. It said the best thing to do is get relaxed. And if you're going into an interview, you're going to meet somebody, they said, act as if you're walking onto the stage.
Yeah.
And you're
making
an
entrance. Your
How would you walk onto the stage?
Shoulders are back, chest is out. By the way, just
confident, poised, and smiled.
I wrote down one word actually. Posture figured a lot in this article. Did you pick that up? Like everything was about your posture. If you're doing this, then you're not confident. If you're more exposed, your chest is out, your shoulders back.
They said that about phones. It wasn't in this particular article, but I was reading. They said your head is 10 to 12 pounds.
Could you imagine
They said
that?
they've got this new problem that chiropractors are seeing.
Yep.
Is that everybody doing this all the time, and they're doing this phone posture that you have to get out of.
So a number of people that contributed to this article happen to be professional coaches and actors. And here's a paragraph from the article. There are ways to head off other people's shaky snap judgments by being mindful of how they might see you. Some visual cues are beyond all our control, how we're set up facially, the distance between it comes down to even like the distance between your eyes sometimes, like how we make
Which you can't
control that. That's a biological genetic thing. But a lot of these individuals that contributed to the article said that you can, in fact, improve your chances of making a better judgment or the snap judgment changes by being mindful of the fact that you are, in fact, performing.
And somebody's watching you all the time.
All the time. And that was one. Did you pick up on that when she said that grumpy face? If you're a grumpy face person and then you smile suddenly when someone looks
Hi,
at you.
everybody.
Yeah. That if people unconsciously recognize that you're actually just turning a switch on as opposed to coming in and smiling. Now,
I worked for a woman like that who was the biggest fake POS, I'll call her. But she was the grumpiest, nastiest woman I'd ever worked for.
I know the company.
Person I ever worked for.
Yeah, I know the company.
But she would do that. She'd be scowling all the time, and then somebody would come in and she would do this huge fake smile. She had fake teeth. It's fake teeth, fake tits, fake hair, the whole deal. But she would do the big smile, and then they'd walk away. She'd be there. And I called it the Disney smile. She thought she was on Disney. She thought she was a cast character at Disney.
Welcome to Cinderella's Castle.
Right. She would do these big fake smiles, and then, I'm thinking, oh, sweetie, all the money in the world's not helping you. But anyway, so I call that the Disney fake smile. The cast members all do that, don't they? Hi.
They apparently, yes, they do. And so I see a lot of. I also think there's a couple things going on here that are intriguing. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner, or you're in the business of making a positive impression to make a sale or to work with a client. A lot of people have an innate ability to be relaxed and confident and comfortable, and they come in and they win the day. One of my big pet peeves is, and I was taught this, is I hate silence. If you're in a meeting, and you and I both know this, if we're in a meeting and it gets quiet, I can't stand it.
You can't control yourself.
5 seconds, 6, I'm like, I got to jump in and say something because you just don't want. But the training was you never want to keep a client. You don't want to have the client think too far ahead of you. You want to have them be paying attention to every word you're saying. So
my whole thing in negotiation was he who speaks first loses.
He who speaks first loses. Yeah.
I had gone to an interview, and I remember the person, the hiring manager, told me, they said, this guy's a real ball buster. What he'll do is he'll ask you a question. He said, answer the question and then stop.
Oh, literally be cut and dried.
Because he's going to sit there and he's not going to say a thing, and he's going to glare at you for what will feel like 10 minutes. He goes, it might be 90 seconds, it might be 30 seconds, it might be a minute. He goes, just don't say anything. He goes, just look back at him. So after the third time this goes through, the guy busted up laughing. He goes, somebody told you about me, huh? Because he was waiting.
Somebody told me? Really?
Because I just sat there and I would answer the question, and then just like you're looking at me, and I look at him, and he's waiting for me to, spill it all out, which you would do because you're like, oh my God, I can't believe it's silent. And he would always wait for somebody to go rambling on about something, and I just sat there and looked at him.
I would never have gone on the job. I would never have gone to
because you would have started.
Yeah,
oh, that's a nice tie.
Is that a picture of your child?
Yeah, that's my girlfriend.
Oh, okay.
Oh, girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh, lucky you. Yeah, get out.
The silence thing is a weapon, though. I mean that.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, it is. It could also be. It is a weapon. I agree. I mean, it could be used very tactfully and as a tactile process or tactical. Sorry, that's what I'm looking for. Boy, now I've gotten some insight into you because I always thought thought I knew everything. That's a new story on me.
Which one? The guy with it was
with the no expression and you answer and like
just usually and I always remember that just say answer the question and then stop, and if there's silence, there's silence. But
all right, so did we like this shop talk? I think so.
You know, I boiled it down to, and this could go for anything. No, and it's being confident in what you're doing because you can't control how you look. You can control how you present yourself. So it's it's like you said about your eyes or whatever
There's
your
some
physical attributes
makeup
are.
can't be changed,
but if you're confident, you're poised, and you smile, it'll help you get a lot further than not doing any of that.
I would add one last little layer, augmenting what you said. Be aware of your own body language and how you're comporting yourself. I think I told you this one day. I was at the library several weeks ago, and I'm sitting, and I was just, most people I observe at the library are very focused on either writing, reading, or they're dealing with their laptop. But everybody seems to be just doing their thing. There was one guy sitting across from me who was so absorbed with what he was doing. He had half his hand in his mouth. He was biting every nail on his hand, and you could literally hear like the teeth clicking. This girl that was sitting next to him, this young woman, she's tapping away. Neither of us are listening to music, so we could hear this thing. And he's both hands, like one hand would leave, and he's twisting.
His fingers bleeding?
The nails were like nubs. And so he gets up to go to the bathroom, and she looks up over the top of her lap, and all I see is like, and she just does this eye roll, like whoa. And then I look at her, and we both have this little moment where we smile. But I'm not going to pass a judgment on someone for doing that, except to say,
yes, you will.
I'm not going to say it's good or bad, but I will say that that's not a very helpful behavior if you want to convey an impression of stability. I don't even, well, yeah, okay.
Keep your hands out of your mouth.
All right, I was trying to be really like.
No, why are you being nice about it? Bad behavior. If you want to do that at home,
you're right. You called me out. I did judge it. I judged it. I was like, "What? Who the hell raised this person? Did someone not close to this person say,
stop that,
stop this habit, or figure out a way to break it? Because it's not a good habit. It looks. Ugh. All right. On that note, we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, here's the next headline: Why veteran entrepreneurs laugh at you for following your passion. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Brought to you by Volkswagen. Visit VW.com to learn more. Focus on the savvy side of 9 to 5 with the Focus Group.
Been in business a week. I got more money than I know what to do with.
Listen, laugh, and learn with Tim and John.
Herrera Rocher. He is doing well.
This is a new one, right?
Yeah, well, that was great. Hey, welcome back to the Focus Group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with my good friend and co-host John Nash. We changed it. We have all this imaging. We don't recycle through, so we're you might recognize
resurrecting
things. And one of our listeners sent me a picture of some Ferrero Rocher they tried to post on the Facebook page. That was from Bubbles Deere.
Bubbles Deere. Just call me Bubbles, darling.
Little Britain, and I tried to. Somebody keeps taking it down. It gets put up on YouTube, and then YouTube does copyright.
What you need, I'll rip it and make a little video for us. Because I have the DVD. We were just watching Little Britain the other day. I don't know if they could make that today.
Well, the Brits are a lot. They're not as uptight.
They're a little more elastic with how they make fun of stuff. I mean, who baked this delicious tart? Oh, it's the Indian woman from down the road.
Just can't understand a word. I can't. Which she does Fat Fighters with. That one is
Marjorie.
But she has Rosie O'Donnell on, and she says, I mean, it's so crude what she says to Rosie. But
she'll have dust.
It was very good.
Fat Fighters Christmas party. Dust. She'll have dust. Little Britain. You can get that at deep discount, by the way. You probably can.
Well, she says to Marjorie, she says to Rosie, or Rosie says, you shouldn't be eating that donut. And she's like eating a woman's vagina.
That's right.
You know, it's like isn't.
That's
yeah.
That's the Brits do it.
The Brits do it. We can't get away
with it. Yeah.
So anyway, shop talk. We've got why veteran entrepreneurs laugh at you for following your passion. And it's funny because sometimes I try to find images for the slides there. So for this one, there were a million images.
But how'd you get the cosmonaut?
Well, because she has a passion for space. I threw that in there for you.
Yeah, I knew you did because
that's Valentina Tereshkova.
Yeah, and that's the only time she even remotely looks like a woman.
The first Soviet astronaut, woman, female astronaut.
Cosmonaut.
If you watch, is that what they were? Cosmonauts.
She's cosmonaut. We have astronauts. They have cosmonauts.
If you're watching on the Facebook or the YouTube and see our video feed, that's John's hero right there, front and center.
I don't know when we used her year.
It was the day in science.
Okay, yeah.
It was. I wrote her name down to make sure I had it right, but it's Valentina Tereshkova. See, look at all the medals. Look at all the tin on her.
Just remember,
she's going to lead the parade down the Pentagon with the paper mache weapons that Trump's going to drag down Pennsylvania.
The first time we ever used her, I remember I purposely did this because you bust out laughing at that steely glint.
Look at the hair.
Comrade.
She wouldn't make a good first impression. Valentina, would you think?
Well, she would make a good first impression as a school marm. I mean, that is she's one step away from a nun with a ruler, right? I mean, my God. All right, back on the dime.
So anyway, I found all these things about
passion,
and about a lot of people say, oh, you know, if you follow your passion, you can make a career out of it, or make money out of it, or make your passion your paycheck. Or, you know, do what you love and the money will follow.
Let passion drive your success.
And they give some examples of someone that might say they want to open up a coffee shop and sell little croissants and coffees, right? Or a flower shop or something. And that's all well and good. But they were saying at the end of the day, people still need to do other sort of things. You realize you have to put food on the table. You have mortgages to pay. You've got doctor bills. You've got kids going to school, whatever your issues you may have.
And the author says it's all nonsense. Ask any longtime business owner and you'll hear the same thing. Passion is overrated. If everyone followed their passion, who would take out the garbage?
Take out the garbage. And they said that, they said the rest of us will sell insurance, service air conditioners, fix cars, bake pizzas, replace tiles on roofs, take out the garbage. That's a reality. It doesn't mean you don't
have a passion,
not like your job, or you're not passionate about something, but I laughed. I didn't laugh. They said there's so many businesses where people have decided they're going to follow their passion and they end up failing.
Yeah.
And because you're like, okay, now I left my job as I don't want to process invoices anymore, so I'm going to open up this bookstore, and then you realize nobody's really buying books.
And the author says, you know, I don't want to throw cold water on your dreams. Even for the startups that succeed, their owners soon come to realize that doing something that you're passionate about still requires the same BS as any other business: hiring, firing, accounting, financing, selling, and cash flow. Yep. So you could be the most passionate person in the world, but if you have no head for numbers, you don't want to deal with accounting, you don't even understand what cash flow is, you're doomed anyway, right?
And then the other line I thought that was kind of snarky was that it says, I found if you dig deeper into some of these passion stories, they said you'll find out that the entrepreneur has a bunch of family money in the bank propping up his or her business, or they're a celebrity, or they have a rich uncle. And I thought of Telluride like this. You and I would go to Telluride, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
And you would go into these little shops or see somebody that's making clay ashtrays.
Or abalone earrings.
Abalone earrings, or, you know, snow angels out of clay.
Or snow angels out of snow. They're only in season.
But you know the rent is outrageous there, and all the other stuff. And you're thinking, how are you making money? I was reading a story the other day online about some of these people in the ski towns, and they've talked about Colorado in particular because Aspen and Vail and these places, it's really gotten out of reach for the normal person to go ski. But they were talking about the merchants there, and you would read what some of these store brands, and you know that they've got to be somebody's foot in the bill because you're not making the rent.
You're not bringing the coin in.
Doing the abalone.
The register's
earrings.
not opening and closing all day long, right?
So
it was I wrote down. I heard a story told to me by a friend of mine many years ago. I think it was when I started my second agency, or it might have been even before we began our company, our current company, Triberry. And it involves a famous designer named Paul Rand, who was apparently giving, and this is probably urban legend, I'm guessing, maybe not, giving a lecture to a group of master's students in design, and a student raised their hand and said, what would you recommend my portfolio look like for my first job interview? And Paul Rand just kind of stood there and he says, I can't tell you anything. The most I can tell you is this: you have to put a roof over your head and food on the table. Everything else is icing on the cake. And so what he's talking about is what this article, I think, hones in on. It's survival.
Yeah.
And the article finishes with an interesting paragraph here, and the author says, the smartest business people I know get their passion from earning a living that provides for their families, their employees, and their customers. They are passionate about what pays for a nice house, a vacation, a child's education, a good dinner, a new TV. They know that you don't have to be passionate about what you do as long as what you are doing is contributing something that the world needs and a profit can be made. I think that sums up the Paul Rand thing. You have a couple of basic things to do in life. You got to put a roof over your head, clothing on your back, and food on the table, right?
It's funny. Last time I was home, my dad was talking to me, and I've never heard him share this before. My dad was a sheet metal worker. He built lots of things for, which I didn't realize he worked on building the room that they built the Hubble telescope in.
The clean room.
Right? Yeah. And he did all the air ducts and air conditioning stuff and the heating and all this stuff. And he was very enthused by it. And I often wondered, because as a kid, you see him going to work really early, and he would work weekends or whatever to make ends meet. And I thought, man, he just must be, what a grind. I mean, he works with his hands.
Do you like it?
He said to me, he goes, I love my job. He said, I love going to work every day. And he said, and the biggest thing for him, which made it so, he said, I knew I was good at what I did, and I liked figuring things out on how to run this ductwork or whatever. He said, but the biggest reward for him is when somebody thanked him and said, what a great job he did. And I thought, wow. Talk about just a very simple thing of he would say he'd figured out this big project and that's how I found out about the Hubble telescope, how to hang this ductwork. And he said he was singled out and told that he was a credit to the union or whatever. And he just thought that's all he needed was to somebody acknowledge the fact he did good work.
What a great example your dad would be, because not every project I would say it this way, every project he worked on had the ability to be a unique solution. So it might be that he was doing sheet metal work and duct work, but every time he did it, it was a different puzzle to solve. So he probably got a lot of enjoyment out of that. And my God, the clean room, was it Pratt & Whitney or something who made they ground the glass for the mirror. That's cool.
But then it could be something as unglamorous as you've got to run the ductwork for a new hospital somewhere, right? But it was interesting because I never heard him talk like that before, and I thought, you know what? That's about passion. He knew he was good at the job he did, and for him, the satisfaction that you said of putting the food on the table, whatever, revolved around. I knew I was doing a good job, and I liked
for it
that I was recognized for doing it. And it wasn't a monetary thing so much, obviously, but
We talked about this before lunch too, because last year I finished my animation program, which is a passion of mine. But when you do the program and you talk to professional animators, politics, salary, contract, who last in, first out, it's all the same stuff.
You're not all going to work on Toy Story.
And that's something that one of my last mentors told me. There's a very few number of people at the studios. Everybody wants to get in, but guess what? And they're going to hold on to those jobs.
Well, they make that comment in the beginning about someone who wants to be a professional athlete, and they said when you finally realize the fact that you're not going to be,
0.01%, yeah.
And I remember President Obama got in trouble for this because he had made a comment, and he was talking to some African American youth, and made the comment. It essentially said, "Get an education, cut your hair and pull up your pants. You're not going to be a rapper. And you're not going to be a
cut your hair and pull up your pants.
Pull up your pants and get an education." He said, because chances are you're not going to be a rap artist and you're not going to play ball. We all want to do that. It's like someone might say, "Oh, you want to be a cyclist. You want to ride in the Tour de France." They said the minute amount of people that get to do that.
Such a slim layer.
With any of those sports, or if you said I want to be the next Madonna, guess what? There might be one person that's the next Madonna out of 7 billion people on Earth.
That opens up a whole, which we won't necessarily go into now, but that opens up a whole conversation. When I was growing up, I was never told that I could be the president or an astronaut. I was always told you're going to be what you want to be and always be the best at what you're doing. Now, that's a little different than saying you're going to be the president of the United States. I had no desire to be the president. I like the idea of an astronaut for the for the leaving the Earth part of it, but and in upstate, our friends Pat and Gary had us to dinner one time, and they had neighbors. This young guy and his new wife came by, and he was a lineman for NYSEG.
The county.
Lineman for the county.
In Glen Campbell.
And I asked him about his job, and he said there are very few people that want to climb the poles in the worst weather to restore the electricity. But he is in a rarefied position when he goes out on these calls in the bad weather. It's double, triple time.
I was going to say, yeah, he's probably making,
And when you asked him about it, he said, when he was in high school, it was vocational school or college. He could have done either. He chose a vocation. He knew he liked working with his hands and being outdoors. And then he said, but this climbing the poles has allowed me to do. I bought this. We have a family. We have a house. So an awareness of that food on the table, roof over the head, do something you enjoy doing, you like solving problems, you like working with your hands, you're outside. But he doesn't need a BA or a master's degree to do that, right?
No, and the sooner you realize that, and which you had mentioned, putting food on the table and taking care of yourself, the sooner you realize that, the better you can be, because we'd all like to have some sort of glamorous thing. I mean, if you could be something else, what would you be? Would you be an astronaut? Is that what you'd want to be?
It's such a funny question because lately I'm kind of happy with who I am. I mean, it's like friends will say to me, "Are you going to be an animator now?" I'm like, "I'm an animator already. I know how it works. It doesn't mean I'm the
best."
But
if someone had a little one, they tapped you and said, "John, you're going to be 25 again. You got to start over. It's Groundhog Day."
25 again.
You're 25 again, and you could have any career you want. And you're going to be great at it.
I would probably choose animation, but
really,
but back when we were 25, that didn't exist.
No, I'm saying right now they're going to tap.
Right now, if you could do that, I'd probably
science fiction.
Yeah, there you go. I'd be fascinated by that. That's a great question, though, isn't it? Yeah. Because you have to really say to yourself, like when we were in college, what was our passion in college? Going back to this article, not to go too far.
I thought I wanted to be an ambassador or something, but if you ask me now, I'm going to be a rock and roll star. I'd be on stage and sing. I can't sing. I have a horrible voice.
We're going to fill that condo with beep and beer.
And booze. I'd be a rock star. I'm going to sing. Wouldn't it be fun? Did you get out there and see the crowd sing?
I have to agree with you.
Happy?
That could be very
intoxicated. What would you think of Justin Timberlake's Super Bowl thing? We didn't even talk about that as we're closing out the show. Talk about passion or what? I know that's your pass card.
Oh, yeah, Justy. That was Bob's pass card. Then I decided to co-opt it just to foil the pass card plan. But
How do you think he did? There was mixed reviews.
I would be in the mixed category. I was actually pretty surprised when he did the tribute to Prince, which I liked because I love Prince.
A bed sheet?
Well, that was you mean the projection on the show.
That was...
You took it down.
No, but of all the songs to do, I Will Die For You. Yeah, I mean, this is the song we're going to pick of all the Prince catalog?
I just have to say that a halftime show is super challenging to begin with. It's like putting on an Olympics opening or closing ceremony. And frankly, if we're going down that road, the best opening ceremony of the Olympics I have ever witnessed, would you guess which one it was?
The best opening.
Music, and it was so
Was it England?
Yeah, it was the British.
Well,
it was London.
British.
I mean, come on, when the Pet Shop Boys come out and all these
at the end.
Fantastic acts and bands.
Did you see Justin Timberlake's new video?
No.
With him doing In the Woods or the Wood. Have you guys seen that thing?
No, I haven't.
You have to watch it. He's wearing a shirt like John. He's got a flannel shirt on, and he's trying to be folksy and homey.
He's anything but, though.
Right, and he's got his Timberland boots on. He's in the cabin, and you have to watch it.
All right, it's on the list along with a bunch of other stuff. Hey,
I'd be curious to see what you.
We're gonna wrap. Oh, here he is. Tim. There he is doing.
Yeah, I mean, he's
dancing like he's in the Mickey Mouse Club.
Well, he's a little light.
That lean on the tree wasn't very serious. Yeah. Oh, and he didn't set up that tent.
No, of course he didn't. He didn't dress himself either.
But there's a cocktail.
Yeah. So you'll have to watch it in the music, and it's very folksy Duck Dynasty.
All right, I'll catch it. The album got really tepid reviews, so we'll see. All right, we're going to wrap up the show, friends. Thank you for spending time with us today. FocusGroupRadio.com is our site. All the information about our show and the platforms are on there, including our partners, one of which is Deep Discount. Today we talked about their awards sale. If you are a listener, use FG15. That's a one-time use code for Focus Group listeners for the month of February. It takes 15% off your entire order. Suburbicon is the new release. Thank you, Deep Discount. Volkswagen Group of America, big partner of ours here. We are very happy to be working with them. We both drive their vehicles, and we love them. So visit VW.com to check out what's going on there. Atlas, Tiguan, All-Track, Golf. I could
Keep going.
Jetta, Passat, Beetle. There's a car for
Arteon is the new one that's coming. They're launching in the Chicago Auto Show.
Which is supposed to be like the old CC.
CC, yeah.
But you had
Flagship.
a CC. Mm-hmm. Didn't look good in his CC. You had a white CC.
Like that car.
You liked that. It was a sports car.
Sports car.
All right, so tune in next week, and don't text and drive. Arrive alive.
With the Bare Naked Chef next week.
Oh, Bare Naked Chef next week.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Formerly on Sirius XM Satellite Radio and now accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.